Substantiate, to establish by proof or competent evidence. Welcome back to Substantiate. I'm the host, William Glasser, bringing you hypothetical sports matchups every single week. Yes, welcome to Substantiate. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, welcome. And I know this week we have a crossover episode with First Class Counsellors podcast, so I'm expecting a bit of a large turnout from the First Class Counsellors feed this week. Anyway, so the first half of this episode where we will draft some teams, which we'll explain a little more later, that's on this feed, and then you'll just click a link in the show notes, head on over to First Class Counsellors, and listen to us talk about Avengers playing in color war events. So I know this is a lot of Marvel and Avengers lately with MCU heroes versus villains playing ice hockey, and then today Avengers in color war events. But next week, getting back to a more regular sports episode focused more on sports. And next week on Wednesday will be a guest that I've actually mentioned a couple times in previous episodes. So really excited to have that person on who you'll have to hear from next Wednesday. And sorry for the 1 day late release this week. First Class Counsellors, they release on every other Thursday. So I just lined up with them, pushed it a day back, no trouble. Anyway, so this episode is a bit shorter if you look at the time, but that's really only just because the other entire half is on their feed, so it's actually one of the longest episodes ever if you combine them. Anyway, and in this episode we also reference the Apache Relay, but we don't call it the Apache Relay, just like cultural stuff, and apparently you're not supposed to say Apache anymore. Anyway, on First Class Counsellors and Substantiate, we're not trying to offend anyone in any way, so we are just dropping that part of the name. So when you hear us refer to a relay, extended relay, that way you just know what it is. And yeah, so this was a fun episode to record with Matt and Oliver from First Class Counsellors, who you'll hear from shortly. But first, just a reminder, if you want to check out our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all at substantiatepod. Clubhouse is at William Glasser, that's just me. And also New York Sports Talk is my club on Clubhouse. Go there to find some rooms about New York sports. Haven't done too much with that yet, but it is definitely coming down the line, getting a few more followers so that we won't have empty rooms, but, anyway. And Substantiate Club and Clubhouse should be coming shortly. Not sure if it'll be up by the time this episode is released, but, just check the show notes. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. Yeah, so in this episode, one last comment. It's kind of funny. So, I say some things here, like just talking about odds, because we do a couple of random selections for lining up events and stuff in the second half. Just listening back and editing this, it's so ironic the way it goes and how every word in the sentence when I say it, the odds were against me in the second half of this episode. And, but you'll still have to listen to see what ends up happening. But this was a really fun episode. And I know on the First Class Counsellors half, they post video on YouTube. So I guess I'll leave a link to that in the show notes as well. But without further ado, let's throw it on over to Matt and Oliver from First Class Counsellors. Today, I am joined by Matt and Oliver from the First Class Counsellors podcast. How are you today, guys?
Doing well, Will. Great. Excited to be here.
Doing fantastic. Excited to face off in this competition.
Oh, yeah. And before we begin, do you guys want to take a second to tell the listeners about First Class Counsellors?
Yeah, absolutely. First Class Counselors is a show where we geek out about summer camp. And the point of our show is that if you've ever been a summer camp staff, I know, Will, you go to summer camp, and the staff do a lot of training before it. Yeah, repping the camp sweater. I
Oh
love it.
yeah.
The point of First Class Counselors is that we teach camp counselors the skills that staff training doesn't always teach them. There's a lot to know, and we go deep into, how to plan the perfect session or ideas like how to get your cabin super clean and get your campers a part of that. We go really deep on those nitty-gritty things that you only learn usually from experience. So that's kind of what we do. Oliver, anything else?
No, you kind of hit it on the nose. That's what we do. We want to make the best counselors possible. And to do so, we share as much information as we can for you to take to your camp and take care of kids and make sure they have an amazing summer.
Yeah, and I've been listening since I found out that Matt was a co-host on it. And even, obviously, I'm not a camp counselor yet, but it just listening to it, and it brings up just interesting things, just bringing a group of kids from point A to point B, and it makes you think about a lot of the little things that otherwise you never would have thought of. So before we get into the main topic today, which is going to be drafting teams of MCU Avengers, and then the second half of this episode will be over on First Class Counselors. So you'll get to hear us talk about them competing in a color war scenario so that the listeners can get to know you guys a little bit. What is your favorite superhero gadget?
Ooh, that's a great one. I'm going to choose Spider-Man's web slingers from the Avenger. I think in the Avengers style, he has the mechanical ones that Tony Stark gives him, if I'm not mistaken. I love Spider-Man because when I go for hikes, I often see like trees in the distance or like big like electric towers or something like that if I could swing to. I think that's like the coolest, like realistic superpower. Yes, everyone can fly, but like to be able to like slingshot yourself, I just think that would be, and then like climb up things too. Come on. So the web slingers would be my technology.
Oh, you hit me hard with the gadget, because I was thinking of like Inspector Gadget and all the things that he might have. That might age me a little bit. But if I had to pick a gadget, does it count as a gadget if you just take all of Iron Man's suit? It's just one suit, right? So that would count.
I say that's fair game.
All right, cool. I just picked the best one. He literally became a superhero because he had one gadget. Then we're good. I'm off to the race.
Well, I mean, you could also make the argument for the implant in his chest, but yeah.
Yeah. I would also say Jarvis, right? Like Jarvis alone, that super system, like, Jarvis becomes Vision. Like, come on.
Yeah, not to scare you guys off today about how nerdy I am, but my laptop's nickname to like connect to other things, if you want to find it on like Bluetooth or something, its name is Jarvis. So
nice.
The race today.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm not going to say the word because otherwise she'll go off on my desk. But in Amazon Echo, I know you can change the wake word to computer, like Batman, and computer, what's the weather today?
Nice.
So anyway, moving along from that today, like I mentioned before, we're just drafting teams on this episode, and then you'll have to press a few buttons, make some clicks, and you'll hear the second half. So we are drafting these teams today, and so it is going to be Matt and Oliver's team versus my team. The player pool's just MCU Avengers, not the villains. There's some borderline characters. Like you could make an argument for Loki at some points as being a good guy, but we'll deal with that as it arises if you decide to pick him. So in the meantime, someone has to go first, and Matt, you have a coin there, so we'll do a coin toss.
Okay. We'll call it camp name and no camp name. My camp name is on one side of this tree cookie for those of you watching. And my non-camp name is on the other side. I'll let you call it in the air. Okay. Ready?
All right. Heads.
Heads was camp name and it was tails. So we get to go first. I'm gonna pass it to my co-host, and I'll let him for our First Class Counselor listeners. You get to really dig into Oliver's nerdiness with this first pick.
Yeah. So just for clarification for everybody out there, we did talk a little bit about no OP superhero. So what we would say in the Marvel universe is an Omega level, mutant maybe, or just that OP person who can change reality. So like sometimes some people who might cross those lines might be like Scarlet Witch, or like technically he's a villain, but like Thanos is pretty OP. He can break some stuff that shouldn't be broken by normal hands. So that some of the rules that we're going into. So if you're sitting there wondering like, oh, why didn't they pick Scarlet Witch? Because she's super OP. And if you've been watching WandaVision, which is just finished by the time we're filming and recording this, you would understand why. She's a boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for Wanda, which for my listeners at this point, 2 episodes ago, where we had another MCU characters episode, but for that one, I drafted her as my coach for a hockey team just because she could control everything.
That's a good one.
She could control everyone except for Agnes, though. But anyway,
right.
On to your first pick.
All right. Well, I think we're maybe going with the strongest Avenger. Maybe go with Thor right off the bat. Pretty powerful right there. All around athlete. He's grown a lot with his age to the MCU. So, we can trust him to maybe not making some dumb old Thor decisions. He's got a collected shoulder. He knows he's the god of thunder now kind of deal. He's kind of taken over for his dad. So I feel like Thor is a good first pick for us. Is there any objections to that?
No, I'm in. I love it.
Yeah, and just thinking about him and how he's changed as a character from more so from a perspective of just knowing about the way that Earth works. But, he first arrives on Earth and, he's like breaking cups at a restaurant and stuff. And, so he may not be so aware about color war, what that is, but he'll definitely have the qualities that would do well in color war.
Right.
All right. So for my first pick, I am going with someone here that was left out of the episode a couple days ago, but I'm going to go with Captain America. And he's someone that one thing in color war that's really important is, having some kind of cheering and having, whether it's some older campers, LITs or CITs, just cheering on younger campers. And, Cap is probably 100 at this point, maybe 80 something, probably born in the 20s, but I guess 100 then. But he possesses all of the team qualities that are important in color war, into the point where Thor isn't selfish necessarily, but for example, someone like Iron Man, maybe not the guy that you're going to pick every day of the week.
I love it. I love the team aspect of it. You got to consider it because we will be doing some team events and some solo events. And we will be picking at random though, too. That's something I think we got to consider as we're picking our teammates. Because if you just choose all super strong characters and they are in a test of wit, which happens in color war activities, then we have to be ready for it. So that is great.
Yeah.
What are you going to do if you have Iron Man and Doctor Strange on your team? They really didn't work so well together in the grand scheme of the movies, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is Civil War Part 2.
Right. Okay. So our pick, I'm up. I'm going to go with someone maybe that you wouldn't think of, but I'm going to go with Ant-Man for my second one, because the ability to shrink and grow and move in that way, in color war games, we haven't fully figured out the activities yet too. So I'm not trying to cheat in that way, but to be able to grow and get small, if you have some kind of dodgeball like activity or anything where you need to be hiding, there's lots of hiding games too. You want somebody that can become either invisible or super small, but also being super big can be helpful too in a lot of ways. And I never used to think of Ant-Man as a great superhero. And then I watched Ant-Man and I was like, that makes a ton of sense. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do. And I'm going to be liberal about using his power in the competitions.
Yeah. I mean, obviously in the movies, we see him change size to a bunch of different sizes, whether it's just a couple feet tall to a giant. But if there's any team sports games going on or anything, that'll definitely help. If maybe in basketball or football, which again we're not set in stone with the events yet, but if there was something like that, having a player that could either go up and be 10 feet tall or smaller can definitely be useful.
Right. Yep.
All right. So with my next pick, I'm gonna try to stay here with people that are still intense and tough, but also understand the team aspect to it. So I'm gonna go with Black Widow here with Natasha Romanoff. So again, she is a hero that she's obviously very strong, very, very good at martial arts, can really do anything to anyone. And although she doesn't necessarily have superpowers that aren't natural, she's just a very strong fighter. But again, you don't always need that kind of thing in Color War. And at camp, not everyone is the most athletic person, but everyone has fun in Color War. So I think that Black Widow here will be a strong pick to be alongside Captain America.
Well, I like it. You're really building like a team. I like that a lot.
Yeah, because like in something where it's Color War compared to some other episodes that I've recorded with hypothetical sports matchups, it's there's just certain times when team building and teamwork is more important than not, and this is definitely a place where teamwork is important.
Does that mean it's time for my pick here?
Yes, it is. Pick number 3.
If you have ever been a part of any type of Color Wars, Color Games, Field Day, you know that there is typically some form of a scavenger hunt, which speed is of the essence. So I will be picking Quicksilver as our next pick. So that entire camp property, we can search it in just a matter of seconds. That's the power there. So we're going to be taking Quicksilver as our next pick.
Yeah, I like it. One thing we decided before doing this is you can pick a person from any point in time in the MCU timeline, just only once. And, obviously in WandaVision, Agnes is like, oh no, that's not the real Pietro. He's on another continent. And instead it was obviously not him, but instead we have Quicksilver here from Age of Ultron, and he's fast and she's weird, so he'll definitely be able to do that. Now, if we bring it back to the whole randomness aspect of it, then depending on which events he gets picked for, then that might not always be the best, but there's few things where being slow helps. So
Yep.
All right, so with my next pick, with my third pick, right now I have Captain America and Black Widow, and again, still trying to stay on the team side of it. So someone that is really all about his people is Black Panther, and that's who I'm going with next. He is a protector, again, very selfless, again, an incredibly strong person with all the tech and stuff. So he has almost, not quite the same amount of tech as Iron Man necessarily, but he's just so much more sleek and a little more natural than Iron Man's tech is, if that makes any sense. And I think that he'll really mesh in with the rest of my team. So Black Widow, Black Panther, we might be the black team if that's our color.
Right.
You can get Captain America as Nomad, and then you'll have matching uniforms across the board.
Yeah, we might have to work that out, get some black face paint or stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That's us. Will's really got this team thing locked down. I think I'm trying to think of leaders in the MCU that, are going to work well with our team. Oliver, do you have any that come to mind? I don't want to hum and haw over one and then Will take it, but like Peter Quill is a lead. He's, leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, arguably, but he's a bit of a bumbling guy. He's got that like kid-like aspect to him that would fit well like in a summer camp world. I don't know, Oliver, who would give us some leadership?
I was thinking Mr. Fantastic, the Fantastic Four would be a good pick for having a leader in our group. I was also trying to think of, we got a couple guys on the team, trying to see if there was a woman. I think Carol Danvers, she's super powerful though. I'd put her probably at the Omega level. She's a little bit out of the our zone. But I also thought the Wasp, we have Ant-Man, and I know that they're in the same kind of team, but she kind of does take care of him, right? And make sure that he's doing the right thing or on the right direction. So she might be a good pick for a leader as well. So I'm gonna put it up to you a little bit on that. And but another strong female character would be She-Hulk. She is a leader and considered stronger than Hulk, also more intelligent than your typical Hulk. Barbara, I think, is her human name, and she's apparently also very intelligent. I gotta check that though. Can't remember what her real name is. I'm gonna try and look it up real quick. Jennifer Susan Jen Waters. There we go.
That's right. Yeah, let's go with She-Hulk. I like it. Some leadership. We got some great feminine energy on the team. I think that's a great pick. And also brute force strength. Very useful in many things. So yes, good call, Oliver. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. She is not currently in the MCU, but maybe on her way. But and she's been in recent Marvel stuff, as recent as their collaboration in the video game Fortnite. But she's definitely, again, she possesses a lot of Hulk's strengths, along with a little more wit, depending on what version of Hulk you're talking about, whether it's from Endgame or the Incredible Hulk. Very different characters, but I think that is a good pick. So now another person that is very strong, this person that I'm thinking of, she doesn't necessarily quite match She-Hulk's strength, but she matches her intensity and competitiveness. This is going to be Okoye. So she is a player. She's worked with Black Panther. Again, another very selfless person. And she might not be there cheering everyone on because she's very serious. But at the same time, the team aspect of it, when it comes time to get the job done and to win whichever event it is, she'll get the job done. And she's a bit smaller than She-Hulk, and like you were talking about with Ant-Man, there's a bunch of different pluses and minuses to size. So it'll be interesting how these two match up once we talk about these events later.
I like it. Oliver, I can't believe we just breezed right past Wonder Woman. Like, come on.
But we did breeze.
So
by
let's
Wonder
take her.
Woman.
Like
We can't
scoop
take
her
her,
up,
Matt. You're off, man. Wonder Woman is not Marvel. She's DC.
Why was she on my list of potential people? She was given, according to this Wikipedia article, this is the extent of my knowledge. Oliver is the carrier. It says originally given probationary status in Avengers 156 in February of 1977. She was the founding West Coast member, former leaders of the Revengers.
Right, now I gotta look this up.
I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I know I wasn't that dumb. I knew that she was.
You might be stretching a bit there.
Right. Google, is Wonder Woman in the Avengers? Answer: no.
Google is law.
All right. Well, let's edit that out so I don't seem like as big of an idiot as
yes, that's exactly what I was thinking also, definitely.
Yeah,
you're not going to edit that, I know. Okay, I'm just going to sheepishly give it up to Oliver. You make our last pick, Oliver.
Oh God, I don't know. See, now I'm at a pause because I don't know how I want to round off our group at the end here. Part of me does want to dip into our Guardians of the Galaxy friends, right? They're pretty awesome. But there's a lot of heroes that we haven't even touched on that are, they're not in the movies, right? They're hidden that, as a maybe secret lover of this universe, know some tricky ones to pull out of nowhere.
Can I make maybe a suggestion? What about, fire, fire building, or things that could be something kind of useful? I wonder if Human Torch, right? Remember, right? Fantastic Four, he could be useful in that way.
That's very true. I was thinking fire as well. Fire building, I don't think, how many camps do you know don't have the fire build at the end of, the big race, right? It's a huge thing. It could be a good.
I mean, like you could also just we could also just take Iron Man and just have the powers. Who cares if they don't work together? We're just going to be like the overpowered jerk team that will hopefully like bully its way into winning. I don't know.
You mean like the 90s team that faces against the Mighty Ducks and always loses? That like classic.
Yeah, Team Iceland.
Yeah. You want to be that team? Do we want to just sell out and just be like, we take the best players and the best players only?
The Mighty Ducks beat Iceland once. The only once, right? They embarrassed them earlier. Like, you know, that was one game where you could argue that they got lucky. Team Iceland's a good hockey team.
I'm trying to also think of, you know, maybe some people are going to show up later in the MCU that, you know, people might not be aware of. Like Nova could show up. That'd be super cool, right? For those of you who don't know, he's going to probably show up with like the Guardians of the Galaxy. He was in an end credit scene. We're all very excited for it, or I think it was Adam maybe, but nonetheless, there's some secret things that are sitting there that we're all just kind of waiting on. For all my Marvel nerds out there, we've had 20 something movies and it's just not enough. You should not have given me the last pick, Matt. This is the problem. I'm so indecisive. That last spot. I'm going to end up picking somebody like, somebody horrible.
It's funny. We can just hear you scrolling through.
Yeah.
Scroll. Find. Need.
Editing. We're just editing here.
I know. I'm sorry.
No. It's fine. I threw it over to you. I'm happy to take Human Torch. Like fast, can fly. Right? Do we have flyers right now? I haven't looked at our team.
Thor can fly.
Yeah, Thor can fly.
Yeah. Yeah, we can take the Human Torch. I'm fine because that gets into the Fantastic Four, and that would be a good touch.
I mean, you could also argue Quicksilver, but for
flying.
Oh no, for Fantastic Four because.
True. I was also thinking Spider-Man. You know, he's been tutored enough by Iron Man. He could become a leader. He's got the Iron Spider suit. You want to just go simple Spider-Man?
I can take Spider-Man. Got great accuracy, can climb stuff. Yeah. Okay. Do you want us to actually formally pick him so that it doesn't sound like we were just humming and hawing for the last?
Yeah, Matt. Oh, man, I don't know who I want to make the last pick. I haven't been thinking about this for like 20 minutes. We've edited it all out. I think a really good pick, Matt, would be Spider-Man. Such a young gun. He's been tutored by Tony Stark long enough. It's his time to step up and lead. All right, let's go Spider-Man.
Okay. Yeah. Favorite technology? Like, let's go. Let's do it.
All right. Yeah. As Spider-Man, the Spidey sense is obviously anything with reaction time. He'll be there, and anything with agility, he'll definitely be there, swinging from building to building or tree to tree, whatever it may be. But he is there. Another good pick, a little on the undisciplined side in a way, and you're obviously hoping that whatever Tony Stark has taught him is sinking in and staying. But yeah, I like it.
At the end of the day, too, he's a kid playing kids' games. He's here for the right reason, right? We got the youngest Avenger out there doing what young people are supposed to do, crushing it in Color Wars.
Yep.
Yeah, which sort of leads me a little bit to my last pick. And it is going to be I wanted to go with someone a little more fun also. And so for fun, obviously, I'm dipping into Guardians of the Galaxy. And Rocket, doesn't really fit the whole vibe of my team. Groot, again, just clueless, won't do anything you tell him to. But so here I'm going to go with Gamora. I think she is, again, an intense player, but has slightly better morals and ethics than the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And ultimately, she, throughout the two Guardians of the Galaxy's movies and her other appearances in the MCU, she's proven to be a team player in different ways. And I know in Endgame, a lot of the Guardians have, but she especially throughout Infinity War and Endgame proved to be a player or a hero that can work well with the rest of my team. So I'm going to cap off my team here with Gamora.
All right, so let's read through our teams, I guess.
Yep. So we can just go by pick for pick. So Oliver and Matt, your first pick was
Thor,
Captain America, and
Ant-Man,
and Black Widow, and
Quicksilver,
and Black Panther, and
She-Hulk,
and Okoye, and
Spider-Man.
and Gamora. Yep. So those were our teams, and those were 10 different people right there. So by the time that, or depending on what part of the day you're listening to this episode, there may or may not already be on my Instagram page a list of all of the different characters, or if you scroll to the very bottom of the show notes today, you will see it down there to follow along. So those were our teams right there. We've got my team. We've got the First Class Counselors team. And yeah, so we are going to hop on over to their feed, to First Class Counselors. Go and check out that link in the show notes down below. Just scroll down. You'll find that. And you're going to hear us talk about some different events that our teams will be competing in.
I was thinking, Will, that these teams would also be funny if we like completely had to change the competition. I was like, who could entertain a cabin of like 10-year-old girls for an hour? Who would be the best person to entertain? And I think like both of our teams would just be awful at that if that was the challenge. Maybe Spider-Man. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, if you want to go 10-year-old girls, then Spider-Man is definitely the way to go. But Tom Holland,
Tom, what about Tobey Maguire? Give a man his due.
When he like gets a bit of the venom in him and he's walking down the street with like the slick back, like cool guy hair. That was like the most trash Spider-Man ever.
Yeah, I mean, I got some pretty emotionless people on my team. Gamora, who, had never even heard music before, and Okoye, who, again, may be the most intense person in the MCU.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting to see. And and with that, we'll head on over to First Class Counselors. Hope you enjoyed that half of the episode. Now go on over, click the link in the show notes, go on over to the First Class Counselors podcast. I will see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of Substantiate. The best way to help support the show is to, number one, tell your friends about Substantiate. That is the number one way to support us. The second way is to leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Number 3, follow us at substantiatepod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.